Thank you for coming to this regional, what I'm calling regional special teams breakout session, the last breakout session today of our regional conference, along with a few others that are happening right now. So what this is, here's my agenda, and it's a loose agenda, and it's really a working session, actually. And the topic of this is examining opportunities to strengthen chapters that maybe need help, and also to build cross-chapter capacity, either helping chapters that need help or just maybe having some cross-chapter collaboration on activities that would benefit from that. So I was just going to quickly go over just the regional structure, how it currently is set up, if you don't know. And then we'll go around, get your role just briefly and what drew you to this session. Then we'll go ahead and do some brainstorming on possible regional teams and activities and things that you see as needing to get done. We'll start thinking about, what of those things are doable and what excites you. Identify maybe some leads, people who might actually want to take some of this on. And then some ideas for how we would implement it going forward. And I'm happy to, facilitate that after this and follow up and help make some of the ideas that we come up with happen. So the regional structure, we have it's kind of funny in California because we're such a big state. Our regional coordinator is Tasha Reddy, and a lot of places there's more than one state per region, but we only have one state in our region, which is California, is its own region in the country. So she's actually our regional coordinator, and then we have currently 5 state coordinators. There's 3 Northern California state coordinators and 2 Southern California state coordinators, and I'm one of the Northern California state coordinators. It's me, Jerry Hinkle, and Harold Heddleman are the 3 Northern California state coordinators. And then down south, there's Kathy Linsky and Todd Elvin. And so that's how that goes. And so Tasha is a paid staff member with CCL, and the rest of us are volunteers. And so there's job descriptions for these things, and it kind of depends on what people's passions are about what actually gets done by us, and some of that is a little bit under construction right now, but there is this sort of leadership structure that's in place. We have, we meet as state coordinators and a regional coordinator monthly. We have monthly phone calls, and then Jerry Hinkle, who's our Northern California leader, he leads a regional call for all the group leaders every month. And they have the same thing in Southern California. They have a group leader call, regional group leader call. I'm Jennifer Wood. I am one of the Northern California regional coordinators. I was one of the founders of the Sacramento chapter, and I was a group leader for 3 years or so. And my biggest accomplishment is finding a group leader to replace me so that then I could become a regional coordinator and do helping chapters. And one of our main tasks is to call the group leaders monthly, and we're assigned a certain number of group leaders, and I think I definitely am variably successful at that monthly, so that's something I want to do better at. But really the state coordinator's main role is to support group leaders, and so that's in addition to all the other fun stuff I could get to do now as a member of the Sacramento chapter and the outreach stuff that I like to do with that chapter. So let's go around and tell me your name. Let's tell us your name, your role currently, and what brought you to this breakout just in 20 seconds.
I'm Molly Whiteley Marin. I do a lot of organizing in our chapter, and I really am interested in what's going on outside of Marin.
Connie Young, Fresno group leader. Jennifer brought me to this meeting. But I do have a question about the structure when we're done.
Sure.
Tony Cerna, Alameda County chapter co-leader. and interested in how our chapter can help other chapters in Northern California, how we can coordinate with others.
John Schaefer, I live in Arcata, but my interest is over in the Sacramento Valley in Redding, where there is no functional group yet. So if you folks know activists in Redding, come tell me about them.
Stu Pettigrove, I'm in the YOLO chapter, and I was attracted by the idea of you live in a district where you have someone on board. In our case, the House member is John Garamendi, but we were starting up a new phase of outreach to ag groups, and I started wondering which of those cut across districts. So, for example, cover Denham's district or the Malpas district, where these are. We maybe don't need to do too much more work on John Garamendi a little bit.
Great.
My name is Brenda Thomas. I'm in the Silicon Valley East chapter, and I was just interested in ways to learn about outreach outside of my own chapter.
My name is Edith Eddy, and I'm really here as an observer. I'm not a member of CCL, and I'm here to learn more about it.
But she's a spouse.
The most important members.
So I'm the spouse, and I have a great deal of regard for the organization. Let's see, I was going to say something, I forgot, maybe I'll come
What
back.
chapter
Go
are
ahead.
you with?
Pardon?
What chapter do you go up to?
Oh, Silicon Valley North.
Okay. Well, there'll be a chance to go back around.
I'm Bill Anelli, and I'm with the Modesto chapter, and I think I'm really interested in cross-pollination with other Valley or Heartland chapters, but also the connection between what I see more as I lived in the Bay Area in Santa Cruz for 20 years, and I've been living in Modesto for 12 years now, and I'm really interested in that relationship between West and East California. Like that to me is, and I would like to know where CCL's thinking is on that, because that to me is equally or more important than North-South. And I've brought this up over time, so I'm interested in
We'll
that.
talk about it some more.
Gwen Sterrett, I'm the Amador Calaveras group leader, and I share that concern of Bill's that there's somewhat of an East Coast, West Coast divide in California, which is, I live in the reddest county in the state, so with a recalcitrant member of Congress, and it's just tough. So the other thing is really just, where is it best for me to put my energy? And, is there better ways for CCL to help some of us who really are in these Republican districts? And, we need those people to become climate advocates.
Great, thanks.
I'm Deirdre Henderson. I'm the group leader of the North Tahoe chapter based in Truckee. I'm here because we started our chapter earlier in the middle of 2017, in July, and I have been struck by the incredible difference between most of California and where I live. There are not just political differences. I live in the red part of California, but there are real cultural differences. And I'm struggling with, there are issues and discussions that take place in Northern California that really seem totally beyond what I can deal with or participate in. I think that we really need to take a much closer look at the eastern part of Northern California, because it really has very little to do with the more populous, urbanized coastal areas.
Thanks.
My name is Tyler. I'm a co-lead of Silicon Valley East. We're in Ro Khanna's district as well as Silicon Valley South. He's 100% on board and he wants to join the caucus. And basically I feel like this would be a great opportunity to learn how to work with other districts and other CCL groups to basically find him someone that would join eventually.
My name is Brian Cronin. I'm with the Alameda chapter, which is East Bay, and I'm the outreach lead, focusing on presentations. And I'm actually here because I see a lot of potential for technology to help connect a lot of chapters in various ways. So I'm listening for ways I could help with that.
I'm Tim Deck. I'm with the Silicon Valley North chapter, and we had a lot of success. Obviously, Anna Eshoo is our member of Congress, and I'm looking at ways to do some development in the new California area in the east.
Great. So yeah, the next part is, let's try to pick apart some of the things that you said that we think, some of the projects, some of the tasks, some of the areas that need help with, that where maybe a team approach or a cross-chapter approach could work. And this is pretty loose at this point.
Yeah, sorry, before we finish structure,
yeah, sure.
I'm confused
Okay.
about the Heartland group. Now, are there 3 groups in
No.
Northern California?
So last year we talked about, this heartland area, which is the Central Valley and Sierra Nevada. And we had talked about maybe breaking it off as a separate part of the state as far as leadership. And the decision was no, it would just be a area that we would kind of talk about collectively as the heartland, but administratively, it's still north-south. So the northern part of the Central Valley and the Sierra Nevadas are, although it goes almost to Bakersfield, is Northern California. And Southern California has pretty much has Bakersfield, although we've done some collaboration on Bakersfield. They have a new chapter. But it's kind of along that split down there, and yeah.
So that means that Monterey, the Bay Area, is administratively under the same umbrella as Modesto,
Exactly.
Fresno. Could you tell me the reasoning behind that?
I don't think there is any reasoning. It's just last year we after the regional meeting last year, we talked about having this more Heartland chapter collaboration. And I don't know, I guess it didn't really pan out. I don't think that the group leaders in the Heartland and the Central Valley and Sierra Nevada everybody's overwhelmed and with their own activities, and it was hard to create yet another.
Because it would be volunteer.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
But I never heard that it was no longer a going thing, so here I'm operating under the assumption that we're still part of this Heartland.
Well,
group,
I
so-
think that we were. Maybe the decision wasn't communicated well enough that I don't think that it went away. We're still grouping. I mean, in my mind, the Central Valley and the Sierra Nevada are grouped as the Heartland chapters, just as a name. It's kind of a name only.
So we're a
right?
subset of NorCal.
Subset of NorCal.
Okay.
And I thought you were the leader of the Heartland.
And I essentially am, although when we started divvying up the calling, the phone calling, there were too many for just me to take on. So then some other folks, Jerry and Harold, were given folks in the Heartland chapter. And then the whole thing didn't really gel. So if we want, maybe that's one thing to put back up here, revive a Heartland group. Just brainstorming here, what is the most effective means administratively and just,
I don't know from
philosophically.
administratively, from their point of view, but
yeah,
whatever labels we put on things,
yeah,
I have a need, and I think CCL does, to understand that it's a completely different environment in the Heartland, in most of those areas, than San Francisco, Oakland, Santa Cruz, Monterey.
yeah.
Completely different. And so that reality is never going to change,
Mhm.
And so even if we have to organize it that way, fine, but
Do you think it warrants like a new actual administrative sort of chunk?
I don't know.
I don't know. Let's think about that.
I think that more important to me might be, and I'm not telling you, is that I said this to you, it's the strategic planning. You know, and the strategic planning for
Strategic
our
plan
groups,
For the
our,
Heartland.
for the Heartland groups is different for planning for the Bay Area. And so when I go on Yahoo Groups and I'm like, oh, what can I learn? How, you know, no, that doesn't really apply to me, or, you know, it's like, okay, I'm gonna stop there and I'm gonna call you and I'm gonna call Harold. And you guys are gonna problem solve for me. But if I had a better idea of how I was going, really, you know, like I've said, what should I be doing? What are the essentials? How do I move forward in these pretty tough districts?
Mhm.
And so some of those groups I think are really important to me, but I'd kind of like to hear from others. Like, you know, Tim's been huge too, like BCL and the Conservative Caucus and how you move forward with in these difficult districts.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm hearing that we, those of us in these types of districts really are wanting our own, I don't know if it's administration, but I really like the idea of the Heartland group.
I do too.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Can I ask, what would be helpful, like within that Heartland Group umbrella, like what additional resources would be helpful to, like, what are you looking for?
I don't think it's additional. I think it's more targeted and specific to our
Okay.
needs.
Okay.
And I think,
No,
well, go on.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say on that, I think, at least my experience in my group is that the individual, the grassroots are far less important. That if you cut away, my member of Congress is gonna listen to the grass tops. And so I have to spend a lot more time trying to figure out how to reach out to grass tops with a
Porch
really
grass
small
tops.
group.
Yes.
And that's been my analysis of it, but I'd love somebody who is a little more experienced in all this and say, no, Gwen, you're off, you know, and you really should try some other way.
Maybe put question mark.
So can I ask, like, so there's a red-blue split in California. I mean, the coastal areas are more blue, but are there heartland areas that are blue, and do they have the same issues, or is it like, or they might be blue in a year? Like, I mean, so like,
I
does
can
that change
respond.
the dynamics here?
So in my district, we might switch to, we're a purple district, because we're 50-50 Republican Democrat. Actually, we're 1% more Democrat registrants than Republican in District 10.
Modesto.
Whereas Modesto, whereas Calaveras County, whole other story. But I would hear sometimes things like, look, Denham, you know, we just have a bunch of Republicans in California who joined, but all of the Republicans are from Southern California. So I started Googling, you know, where are the Republicans from? They're from coastal areas, large urban areas. So there's even a difference between Republican districts in urban areas versus rural. And so what I'm looking for is like a narrative from, a story and a narrative from CCL saying, like, we get it. Like, we get it, that the story we're telling about the Republicans in Southern California is totally different than the story of rural Republicans. Even if you're in a purple district and you have temporarily a Democrat, I can flip later. And so what we're gonna do at CCL is we're gonna create, you know, this is someone who's paid to do this, I think, create a resource for the chapters to start like combining things that work for us that wouldn't make any sense in Berkeley. And that's where I feel like sometimes maybe Connie's doing something and we're doing something and up in Gwen's doing something and I could be learning more, but you know.
Networking.
So maybe more of a proactive
Platform.
organization of Valley, Heartland focused strategies. Because the strategies in the Heartland are going to be different than the strategies in Silicon Valley. That's kind of what I'm saying.
So one thing we're trying to, I'm just going to repeat what I said when we went around first, which is in Yolo County, we're now starting, we've compiled a list of agricultural organizations and nonprofits, and some of them are companies that produce wine or farming. And, you know, it was real obvious when we started, these don't all precisely necessarily within our county district.
Yeah.
And so we could be doing something like this and going and asking to do meetings and presentations, and Bill down there is doing the same thing with the same people growing the same crops. But if I go over to Alameda, I won't see any of that dynamic or this organization. So I'm just looking for ideas for being more efficient. I'm not looking
Yeah.
for the NorCal or the whole state or CCL nationally to suddenly pour in a staff member to do this, but I wish we could figure out a way to network a little better when we do this. Grass tops, I like that. I think that's where we need to focus.
And I have a contact I want to talk to you about in our chapter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was interested to hear either from Truckee, the one from the Grass Tops talk that they had earlier today. They were mentioning that sometimes if there's a city that might be headquartered in the coast that has a large, like say, manufacturing plant or distribution plant like Tesla or Amazon in, I guess that's in Nevada, not necessarily.
Yeah,
We've got
this is-
Amazon in
this
Fresno.
is-
Yeah, like there.
This is another problem for
Yeah.
us on the eastern side of the Sierras, because we orient for, most people orient for general life, needs to Nevada. They're going to Reno, they're going to Carson City, they're going,
Right.
and in the Lake Tahoe area, because Lake Tahoe is protected by a two-state compact, okay, a lot of the activities are Nevada, California on both sides of Lake Tahoe, right? Just to give you an idea, the UC Davis Lake Tahoe Research Center is located in Incline Village, Nevada. Okay, so that makes it a little different. The other thing that I think is difficult for, for California 4 is that it is geographically a huge district. We can't have just one chapter. I mean, you can't travel, you can't travel around. So, we've had multiple chapters, but getting them to all talk to each other about particularly lobbying activities related to our member of Congress is a real challenge. I mean, it's, how do you deal with 4 or 5 chapters in one congressional district? Maybe there are other congressional districts like that in California or in other states.
CA1 is the same thing with La Malta.
Yeah,
It's
it's
huge.
Well,
also.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
but
ran
they're-
into that with McCarthy too, 21.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings up, if I know, one thing I keep wondering is, I would love to see a map. Because when you're talking about some of the places you are, I'm not from California, so I still don't know where some of these places are. So figuring that out, and what the, where the chapters are, and then where the districts are, just,
do that.
getting this all on one map. is really
A
helpful.
map with
Great
districts
idea.
and chapter boundaries,
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
centers.
The
And
other,
more South SoCal too.
the other thing that I'm sensing, and I'm new here, but for the people who are on certainly the eastern side of the Sierras, isolated from the rest of California, I think that it would be really helpful to have more people who have more CCL experience physically present at chapter meetings or whatever, to sort of eliminate or to sort of ameliorate that isolation and the lack of experience.
So mentorship, or how would you call that?
Eastern
Sleepovers.
Sierra, Eastern
That's
Sierra.
what you're talking
I
about.
have a sister in Mammoth Lakes.
Drive
and
out and
there's
sleep it out.
Yeah.
2
Sleep
people
over.
in the chapter there that I apparently, they need help to get it started.
That does bring up the idea of sister chapters. Santa Rosa was the incubator, really, or sister chapter to the Chico chapter, and they've had great success.
And Berkeley started with us though. I mean, they
Okay.
came out and did
But
it.
there
I was
needs to
hearing
be-
an in-person aspect of that was slightly different than
Right.
talking on the phone once a month, but you're
True.
saying like, it'd be great if there were people like in the room.
So physical
Physically,
presence,
yeah.
yeah.
And, we had a chapter, and we have a chapter in South Lake where, what its future is gonna be is I guess we're really not sure. There were some very good people there, but they got diverted into putting all of their energies into their local 100% renewable resolution, which they passed and
Yeah.
which they're working on, which is terrific. But this, this sort of bigger job, more comprehensive job of CCL seems to be dying, and I think in part it's dying there because they got really discouraged talking to
Congressman
McClintock's, staff, which can happen easily unless you have some more experienced people who can mentor you and help you. And I had 4 years of experience or 3 years of experience with CCL before I moved here and started the chapter in Truckee, working with a conservative Republican member of Congress who happened to be Chris Gibson. But most group leaders in most new chapters are not going to come with that background, and they need that support, and maybe the right concept is mentoring. But I really do think that having, other CCL, more experienced CCL people physically visiting from time to time might be helpful.
And can I
Yeah.
just say that
Yeah.
I think Tim did this in Idaho, right? He physically showed up.
Yeah, so, I mean, and to some extent, I've done it in the South Bay with newer chapters. I'll go and visit them when they're having their chapter meetings, but that's much closer. I did fly to Idaho, and what you're saying is that Idaho's the same way. 2 districts in the whole state. One that goes from Boise all the way up to the Panhandle, and one that goes all the way out to Yellowstone. And there's a lot of chapters that we work to develop through all those towns, talking to those members of Congress. But you've got things like sportsmen you need to be working at, which we don't think about in the Bay Area. Winter sports and agriculture is huge, right? And one of the toughest, I think, to try to get a dialogue with. But there's completely different concerns. So the idea of having somebody who's specifically focused on the heartland as a kind of that state coordinator or region coordinator would be, I think, helpful.
And I do have one question, because like you say, I think the issues you're discussing are common in other rural, small town areas, of the country. But I'm also curious what makes the heartland of California different than Iowa or Montana. And one of the things, at least some parts of rural California are more diverse in terms of, like, they've got a, Latino population, they've got a, Filipino population, like that, whereas that's not as true in Iowa or something like that. But I don't know if there's other things that make the California rural different than other parts of the country. Rural.
It's a rock.
But we do have to remember there's a diversity within the heartland because,
Sure.
The Central Valley versus the Sierras, and the Sierras, you've got the timber and the ranching and the state of Jefferson up north,
Yeah.
which, wants to potentially secede from California. So.
Right. Not such a bad idea, maybe. It occurs to me that the difficulties we face in these Eastern California districts are pretty similar regardless of differences in geography and stuff. And maybe first of all, some communication in what used to be called the Heartland Group. Maybe a Facebook page or tell me how to do this kind of stuff.
We had a Slack
one
group.
possibility is to, instead of you guys joining a Northern California regional call, maybe we should have, you could still join that, but maybe we should just have a dedicated Heartland monthly call.
Yeah.
Well, maybe a call. I'm not sure what the best way to organize
start.
it is, but
To start.
people are facing similar problems in Eastern California. In the case of Redding, there isn't really any group.
Yeah.
So some kind of communication among those who are facing these problems would make a lot of sense, all up and down the Sierras.
Okay.
And I just want to respond to Tony's question.
Mm-hmm.
At least, maybe not in the Central Valley, but in the Sierra Foothills, the timber industry is huge. Forest management is huge. Losing our carbon sink in that forest is huge. Turning it into wildfires and being a carbon source.
Right.
So that would be something that, you know, if you're thinking about comparing it to how it's worked in Iowa and all this. So, and actually I'd say Central Valley too, is resource extraction is a business there. And resource extraction doesn't necessarily respond well to carbon fee and dividend. I mean, it could potentially, I don't want to be too much of a downer here, but like when I was in Grass Tops, my question about, hey, I hit a wall and I got to the remedy report, it was about timber. And so when you go in, there's not a brand, I can't label brands until, you know, Sierra Pacific Industry, they're gonna get value from branding. When you go into Lowe's, you pick the cheapest 2x4. And that is not coming out with Sierra. So, you know, there's these things that once you dig deep into our businesses and why we're not getting support from Grass Tops.
Needs special attention.
Yeah, or a way around or something that's beyond my brain.
Just put agriculture, timber, resources.
I'm one that I don't participate in the calls because of my work schedule, but I would like to. But my suggestion with the NorCal call would be, this part of the NorCal call is NorCal Coastal, and the second half of the NorCal call is NorCal Heartland. And why that would be good is I think as someone from the Bay Area, I lived there 20 years, you know, it would be nice for those folks to hear in this way all those issues, because I think there's all kinds of capital in the west of California, northwest, and the northwest that isn't available for all kinds of reasons. That's not to blame anyone.
Yeah.
That's not available in the east. There's a huge disparity of capital in all kinds of ways. And I think it'd be nice to hear if that call had a dedicated part for Heartland issues. Yeah. Anyway.
So we have to be back in the hall pretty soon.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 5:50. Oh, shoot.
5,
Yeah.
8
Yeah,
minutes.
we're just getting started.
Okay, yeah, so for some reason I thought we had till 10 of.
Sorry.
I knew we weren't gonna have time to really even hardly delve into this, but it sounds like there's a real hunger for people in the Heartland to have some special attention to their issues and some strategic thinking. And then there's also a real desire on the part of some folks in the western part of the state to help and to provide some resources and put some more resources and thinking into this. So does anybody have suggestions for moving forward besides kind of a couple of things that we've
I
done?
have a question.
Oh, sure.
So the guy, I think his last name is Stevenson, who talked this morning about the Climate Leadership Council. Do the ways in which he and George Shultz and other Republican leaders, James Baker and others, conceive of the issues from a market-based approach and from a Republican approach, will they work in the valley, or are they, I mean...
I think so, and I think one of the problems that we have is that we don't have a lot of trusted messengers to be going to these folks. It's possible that they view us still, people who we're reaching out to in the valley, as environmentalists.
Sure.
And so we're not, you know, so that one of the things is we need to be reaching out to somebody who can be the trusted messenger for us, who brings that message as a true believer. That's what we talked about earlier in the grassroots outreach.
So I do want to note that he comes from like a Reagan business financial investment Republican,
That's right.
and there's the Republicans that are populists that are more common in rural areas, so there's more than one kind of Republican.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
we want to name
That's
that.
really
Yeah, those
Yeah.
East Coast banker types that we
Yeah.
don't trust when
So
we're
he may not be the right
out in
messenger for.
Well, I'm saying in general,
Yes.
that trusted
Somebody who's
messengers.
trusted.
Yeah, but good point, and that's the
But I
remember.
think CCL does better with that kind of Republican than, because we're talking about finances and economics and in a way that we don't do as well with the Trump supporter rural populist Republican.
So this is a small addition, but my name, because I missed a meeting, is on the title of president of the Return Peace Corps Volunteers for Environmental Action. We're a small group. Once a month we get together on Zoom.
Okay,
And it's a trust builder.
yeah,
And so the notion of sharing it with other folks, Tony knows about it, of course, and a lot of other people here do too, It's a useful way to get eyeball to eyeball, sort of.
Okay. Yeah, good.
So how do we follow up on this? Who's-
Yeah,
I wanna
I
know.
definitely am happy to take responsibility for bringing the people here. Do you want to, should we do a sign up?
Sign up, yeah.
Yeah, for the people who I don't know, give me your names,
Thank
and
you, Jennifer.
should we do a Zoom call?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Public Zoom call with the people in this room here,
Yeah,
and we'll just do some more problem solving.
And thank you, Jennifer.
Yes, thank you.
Happy to talk.